The graphing calculator contains a number of easy-to-use functions that make viewing important points on lines and curves a lot easier. For the purposes of this video, we're going to look at two different lines, y equals 2x minus 3 and y equals negative 3x plus 5. If we graph those two lines, we see that they have an intersection point somewhere in the first quadrant. If we want to get a better look at that point, the calculator's built-in functions will make that a lot easier for us. An obvious choice to look for those functions is the zoom button. So we're going to click the zoom button, and we have a number of options for zooming in on a particular space or zooming in on a particular region of the graph. The first one we're going to try is zoom box, which is option number 1. When you use zoom box, you will set up a rectangular region for the calculator to zoom in on. So moving the cursor away from the origin, you can see the flashing cursor right there. Once I press enter, you have pinned down one of the corners of the box. Then you move the arrows so that you can open up the rest of the box region. So I usually change the vertical space first and then the horizontal space. But you now see that I'm in the opposite corner from the previous spot where I pinned down the corner. That's because I went down and over to the right. And once I press enter on here, I get a zoomed in look on that region. So only what was inside of that box that I chose is available to me now. Now let's say hypothetically that you set up your zoom box and you didn't get exactly what you wanted to see. Maybe you accidentally clicked the wrong button, maybe you need to look at a different point. If you need to return back to the regular window, we can return to the zoom menu, and that's option number 6, zoom standard. So if I choose option number 6, you'll see that I return back to the original window. Maybe you don't want to set a particular rectangular region for your zoom. In those cases, we can choose zoom, and in those cases, we'll choose option number 2, which is zoom in. Zoom in gives us one individual cursor. I'm going to move that cursor close to the intersection point because that's probably the interesting part for this particular graph. And you'll notice that as soon as I press enter, there's no opening a box in this one. The calculator simply zooms in on that spot. And that spot that I had originally chosen becomes the center of my viewing window. So I zoomed in on that particular spot. Returning to the standard window one more time, we're going to take a look at one final zoom that's actually a newer option in some of the new TI-84 calculators. So we'll press zoom one more time, and we will scroll to the bottom of the list. And at the bottom of the list, past all of these other zooms that you'll use in other courses, you'll use zoom stat and zoom fit in some other math courses, is this option right here, zoom quadrant 1. Zoom quadrant 1 does exactly what it sounds like, where it will zoom in entirely on quadrant 1. And you won't see anything outside of quadrant 1. Now, depending upon how you've set up your scales for the two axes, that might be a valuable piece of information, or you might need to adjust these axes so you can actually see the space a little bit better. So zoom quadrant 1 allows you the opportunity to quickly and easily only see quadrant 1. And if we open our window for only quadrant 1, you'll see that it roughly keeps the 10 and 10 that we previously had as the maximums for the x-axis and the y-axis. It adjusts it a little bit so that it can fit in the window a little bit nicer, but we get this quadrant 1 look for our two lines. So just to recap, we have 4 different zooming options that you're going to use pretty regularly. Zoom box sets up a rectangular region for you to look in. Zoom in looks at a particular point and zooms in on that particular point. Zoom standard, which is option number 6, zooms back to the original negative 10 to 10 window that we're used to seeing right out of the gate. And Zoom Quadrant 1 zooms in on the first quadrant. I would recommend that you spend some time experimenting with a few more of these zoom options. In particular, zoom out, which does exactly what it says. It's zoom in, except it goes the other way. Zoom square sets up a square window instead of the rectangular window that the calculator is originally built with. So it might be in your benefit to experiment with some others. But those four that I just showed you are the four that tend to be the most popular in this course.